everybody, to the podcast here, partscounterguru.com. I'm Jay, and that is Keith.
Wow, you are a little rough.
Yeah, I want to preface this before we get rolling. I had a little bit of an allergy thing going on, so I'm on a few meds and some Ricola.
Hey man,
coffee, water,
Don't worry, we'll fix this in post. I'll make you sound. They'll never be able to tell.
Never be able to tell. Oh, that's perfect, man. That's what I like. You are the master. So
hey, you got a topic of discussion today that I found actually kind of intriguing. You know way more about this subject than I do, but I want to learn more. So this is kind of going to be a Keith podcast here for you guys, because Keith's like he's like the master of home electronics. So
I appreciate that, but I have a feeling I'll be able to pull some of your commentary into this as well. But I feel like we just completely skipped the foreplay here, and we're going right into the.
We did, didn't we?
You're just going right for it. Is that the?
So what's the?
I got a couple. I got a couple news topics I want to throw at you. Can we?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah.
All right.
News of the day. You ready?
All right. Yeah. Let's do some news.
Okay. Live from partscounterguru.com. All
right. So. This has been kicked around for a while. But they're doing a very good job of the secrecy. Ford is working on an electric vehicle. Have you heard it? So it's this is what I know that's been confirmed, is they're talking about drawing from the spirit of the Mustang.
Yeah.
So Ford is doing surprisingly well at keeping everything they're working on a secret. Actually, they're probably doing a better job than Apple of preventing leaks. But what people have done... Go ahead.
I was just going to say that I actually think that Ford is doing a better job as a leader in the automotive industry, vehicle industry. I think they're doing a better job at everything.
Well,
than their competitors. That's my opinion.
Yeah,
I've been reading, and I agree with you. Now, are we talking about two-wheel type transportation?
No, four-wheel.
Four-wheel.
Yeah. See, I mean, this is the it's like they're not, and I've always wondered. This goes back to not taking bailout money. Like, is there a connection there? Is there a connection to how they were able to sort of get ahead in the race by sort of not taking that life preserver? I don't know, but I've always wondered.
Innovation, man. Innovation. So, they seem to have a great group of engineers and forward thinkers within their wheelhouse, man. I think
it's fun to watch for sure.
It really is. I'm enjoying what they're doing. I mean, I see the vehicles that they're putting out, and it's just they're doing a lot of good things, a lot of right things, So
yeah. So people have, when these Ford execs give interviews, they have taken consistent remarks, meaning, the guy did an interview and then, a month later does another interview, and they're using similar. So here, I'll give you an example. So they're calling this thing the Ford Mach, and it's going to be a Mach something, and maybe a Mach E, maybe a Mach 1, maybe a Mach whatever, but a couple Ford execs have used that Mach term consistently in some interviews, and so the fanboys have said, we're onto something here, right? So here's what we know about this thing. They're talking about, Ford is saying 300-mile range, SUV body.
Yeah, I'm actually looking at that now.
And draws from the spirit of the Mustang. They're talking about a 2021 model year, which means it would release probably in late 2020. Okay?
Right.
So they've been working on this thing for a while, and the team that they've devoted to it, they're calling Team Edison. So the thing about sort of drawing from the spirit of the Mustang is interesting to me. After having recently rented my first electric vehicle and feeling the insane amount of torque that these things have, I get it. I get why they would pitch it that way. So we've got a separate video coming up on this. We'll put it on our YouTube channel and on the website, where I went and rented a Tesla Model 3 and just reviewed it from the perspective of somebody that's never been in one. I'm a gasoline engine guy. And I will tell you this, and go on YouTube and just any video that you watch of a Tesla doing 0 to 60, the people they just all giggle. I mean, it's just insane. Like, it pins you to the back of the seat.
Feels good, yeah.
I own motorcycles that will do a faster 0 to 60 time than that Tesla, and it's still, there is something about a four-wheeled automobile taking you. The speedometer is just flying so fast you can't even. I mean, it's insane.
Well, let me ask you this. So when you rented this thing, how does what is the sound? What kind of noises are you getting with this thing? Nothing.
Here's the best connection I can give you.
Okay.
I felt like I was on board the Star Trek Enterprise.
That's awesome, man. Now I got to rent one.
I mean, it's just like everything about it was. It's quiet. It's a luxury car, So it will be interesting to see where Ford lands with this. They're doing a good job of keeping us in the dark, and the same thing with the Bronco, man. We've known it's coming out for a long time. We've talked about it before, but it's still somewhat. I mean, we don't even know what it's going to look like, right?
No. I mean,
so
we've seen
I will say,
some speculation on that.
Right.
They've dropped a few hints here and there, but.
So I will say after renting one of these EVs, electric vehicles, it's not going away, and it's going to be less and less of a niche segment soon. And I think Ford thinks that also, and that's why they're looking in this direction. They're kind of the last major player to put one. I know they've had some hybrids, but GM's got their Volt and their Bolt, one with a V, one with a B, and. Well, Chrysler doesn't really have anything either, do they? Do they?
Not really. I mean, there's some hybrid stuff out there, but and unless I'm just haven't done my homework to find that out. But who cares about Chrysler anyway, right? I mean, I'm not even worried about that. So they can do what they want to do. They bailed out on us, man. They're Fiat now, so.
Well, as a former Chrysler you being a former Chrysler owner, it's interesting that you're sort of. You know why I will never own another. We won't even go there, but I vowed that, and the day that I paid it off, I got rid of it, which is what I told the salesman. Yeah. So here, just a couple more. So just to wrap this Ford thing up, okay? It occurred to me, and I don't know that I'll mention this in the Tesla review or not, but I'll say it on this podcast. It sort of occurred to me with all this insane amount of torque that at some point in the future, and this is a little bit of a pessimistic view that I have, but the bozos are going to ruin it for everybody, because you can get in some real trouble with these things. And as a guy that for over half my life has flown model airplanes and built model airplanes and started with a two-stroke model, and I've watched the drone industry sort of take off, and got in early on that, built one before you could commercially buy them, and have a interest in photography and videography.
Right.
And now you've got bozos flying them onto the White House lawn, and so they've had to regulate the heck out of them, and it's to the point now where I can't fly it anywhere.
Right.
I can't fly it anywhere.
Yeah, there's always going to be that one individual that starts a trend of childish activity.
Yeah. I mean,
just stupidity.
I was in a parking lot in a huge city park, like huge. People just go, there's walking trails for miles. I found a secluded spot. I took the car out to take some photographs of it for the video review.
Yeah.
And I pulled the drone out and was literally about 3 feet off the ground just flying around the car.
Oh, that's awesome.
And some guy came out that works for the city and goes, sir, you can't fly those in the city park. It's an ordinance. And I went, is it posted? I didn't see the sign. And, well, it's an ordinance. So I guess I'm just supposed to know all city ordinances. But, yeah, I mean, it just kind of ruins it. So the EV thing, I think eventually knowing that they can push software updates to these things.
Yes.
They will have to regulate because people will start doing dumb things in traffic and, whatever. But for now, you sort of have that Star Trek experience.
I love it.
Which
I absolutely love
mean,
it.
dude, I've sort of felt like I knew what it was like to go to warp speed. I felt like it's that like half second that where on TV it just jumps and then
I know, man. I love that. I love that. That's awesome.
So
I can't wait to rent one and drive one, man.
Yeah.
Well, my son's been telling me for a long time that I should get one.
It's a great learning experience just to go rent it for the day. The reason that I decided to do that, other than the video review, was to document the learning process,
right?
To share
Sure.
with you all.
Yeah.
But I didn't want some car salesman or whatever Tesla calls them sitting in the back seat or the front seat, kind of telling me what to look.
Yeah, exactly.
For.
You want to have the freedom of your own critical thought going through this process of trying to wrap your brain around what this thing really is.
Yep.
And you know what?
So my son and I went, and literally we went, hey, let's just go see if we can find a place to plug this thing in. That's not a Tesla supercharger, and let's see if we've got enough adapters in the. They call it the frunk. It's the front trunk.
Yeah.
Let's pull out their cables and see if we can figure. Let's just see if two dummies can sort of are new to this and we could. It was kind of an interesting. Let's see how this whole autopilot. I've got YouTube. Let's see if we can figure this out. I mean, they make it easy. They put the owner's manual. You can access it right there from that big center screen.
Oh, that's awesome, man! How convenient is that for an owner?
It's pretty great.
Can you with that? Can you are there voice commands in this car where you can
Yeah, so that's the one thing we could never get to work. There is a little microphone button, and you push it, and when you talk, it dictates what you're saying.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
But I could never figure out what. I could never get it to do anything.
No, I got you.
I couldn't get it to call anybody. I couldn't get it to do anything in the car, like turn my lights on, turn my wipers on.
Right.
I don't know what it does.
Yeah.
I should have probably asked it to call Elon and see what happened. But,
get his advice on how I should drive his car.
All right.
So hey,
put Musk on the phone.
You had said before we started getting in a little deeper in this conversation, EVs are not. This technology is not going anywhere. And I remember early on in the beginnings when we first started podcasting, this was a topic of discussion. You asked me where I thought we would be with EVs and autonomous vehicles, and this right here is the best example you could have with bringing up the Mach by Ford that's coming out. I mean, everybody is working towards that, and there's other things too. And I'm going off of what I had glossed over in an article about GM trying to expand their offering, and I saw something about electric bikes that GM was going to be getting into. Have you heard of that as well?
And I mean, this is sort of a innovator die mentality, right? Like okay, so let me take a step back, and this is every podcast I say this, so you hearing this now. It's if you haven't heard this out of my mouth before, this is your welcome to the podcast. This is your first one. The reason it's not going away is because they are pushing so many innovative features that people love, right? That are handy. And that's the part that's not going away. The electric side of it is sort of the byproduct, I guess. So back to GM is realizing, and I don't know the lady's name that's running the show there at GM, but I think she's gone on record as saying, we've got to innovate. they're like, look, if we don't come up with something innovative, we're going to start losing sales.
Absolutely.
And so they have to sort of get outside their box of just making four-wheeled passenger family SUVs and pickup trucks.
Right.
Or they're, somebody else will. This goes back to one of my favorite analogies that your pictures that you paint, which is the guy hiding in the bushes waiting for an opportunity,
That's
right?
Yeah, that's exactly what's going
on. So one more news thing, just because we were on the topic of Star Trek briefly. Right. Let's see. This is. Let me just read you the headline here. Scientists have built a real Star Trek replicator that builds object with light. And to that I say, tea, Earl Grey, hot. Let's see here. Scientists at the University of California, Berkeley, of course it came from UC Berkeley, have found a shortcut, a printer that can fabricate objects in one shot using light and which could potentially revolutionize rapid manufacturing technology. Well, we've all been waiting for this, man.
Yep.
Information published this was in early February in the journal Science, describes the printer the researchers nicknamed the Replicator, and not to Star Trek. It's computed typography, so we know, so think maps, right, with texture. Scans an object from multiple angles and then projects it into a tube of synthetic resin that solidifies when exposed to certain intensities of light. So
it's amazing.
That's like Terminator rising out of the bath. That's a resin
I'm sitting here getting a visual in my mind about that. And again, one of our previous podcasts, I'm like, they're watching, man. Skynet, dude.
Yeah. So in 2 minutes, for instance, the team was able to fabricate a tiny figurine of the famous Thinker statue. So just to give that a point of comparison, if you were to 3D print that on any consumer grade 3D printer out there right now, I'm guessing it's probably about this big. That's going to take somewhere. The best printers can do it in 10 to 15 minutes, and that's without. So you sacrifice detail for speed.
Gotcha.
So if you don't want a lot of detail, you know,
but
10 or 15
that'll
minutes.
of course change. I mean, as time goes on, the technology will they'll figure that out, and
Yep.
Which this is awesome. Everything that we're talking about here in news, it really does segue into what our topic of the day is. So.
All right, so now that we've had our foreplay, so speaking of sort of technology in the future, something that I thought might be of interest is the topic of home automation. And you might think on the surface, well, that's great. You're going to talk about light bulbs and, what does that have to do with automobiles or the automotive industry? Actually, quite a lot.
Yes.
So, I mean, and just where to start with all of that. And if you're looking at or thinking about getting into home automation, which is a rapidly growing industry, that's a question you need to ask yourself, is where to start. But, there are things that these auto manufacturers are starting to put in their vehicles now that are home automation based. I mean, going back to the Tesla, that thing it has a summon feature, which, you can do it from your smartwatch or your phone, and it will open your garage door, back itself out, shut the garage door, and set the temperature in the car to whatever. It's ready to go when you walk in.
Yeah, that's just amazing. And now let me ask you this: with the home automation, the integration between the two, automotive and home. Is there anything out there already that you could just say, like, we have Alexa, hey Alexa, play this or whatever, right? Will it be to the point, or is there already some technology out there where I'm saying, hey, Alexa, warm my car, start my car?
Yeah, there is.
It's amazing.
So it depends on the car, but we have, not to confuse Alexa with a Lexus, we have a Toyota Lexus, and we can tell Alexa, start my car, and she'll do it. And when it's cold out, it's kind of nice. But here is kind of where, if you're thinking about getting into home automation, here's where I would suggest that you start. you need to understand. So most people start with like a light bulb. Like Philips has the Hue lights, which are, really cool. And that's usually their first foray into home automation, that, they buy these light bulbs that change colors and they can control them with their phone. And it's kind of an entry level, a way to get into home automation. But I mean, you've got, just to give you kind of the broader picture here, you've got things like garage door control, door lock control on your home doors, irrigation control if you have sprinklers,
climate control,
thermostats, climate control, humidification on those thermostats. So if you, in the wintertime, you have a whole house humidifier, you want to, turn that on.
Scheduled maintenance.
Weather integration. I've got a weather station in my backyard.
Scheduled maintenance, right?
I can have,
is there you can schedule maintenance, like it was last year that I had my AC or my heat, HVAC checked out to make sure it's working good, and it'll pop up on your calendar and tell you, hey.
Yeah, it'll tell you all that.
It'll call and make the appointment for you? I bet it can.
There are a couple that if you enable that, they will. I don't want mine doing that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool though for somebody who doesn't have the time to dedicate to that. So
I guess the best starting point if you're thinking about getting into this is sort of have a vision of where you want to start. It's hard to know where you want to go, because if you don't own any of this stuff, you're sort of limited in your, it's like me driving a Tesla for the first time. I had no idea some of the things it was capable of. But the sky is really the limit. So, if you have a sprinkler system and you want to maybe build that into your home automation, well, why would I want to do that? Well, why would you want your sprinklers running on a day when rain is forecasted? Or why would you want your sprinklers running maybe when you've already had a couple inches of rain the previous day? So you can integrate that into various weather reports and that. And those have gotten pretty accurate from it's raining right now kind of scenario.
Yeah, it's amazing what the Weather Channel with their apps. They'll send you the notifications and they'll tell you, light rain will be starting at like 1:45 a.m. and last for, and that is how far advanced.
Yeah.
And outside of being able to predict a winter storm, let's face it, they've really done well in that regard. Winter storms are so unpredictable. The amount of snow, where it's going to snow, how cold it's going to get, how many inches you're going to get. That's a little difficult, but outside of that, they're pretty good.
Right. So there are 3 or 4 protocols in this whole home automation game. Now, if you want, so we did a podcast on OBD. Actually, we did a couple podcasts on OBD, and we talked about protocols. So let's compare this to OBD. And if you haven't listened to those, it's 7 and 8, I think, episodes 7 and 8.
That is correct.
And we talked about certain pinouts in that OBD port. Ford has their own signaling protocol. GM has their own pulse modulation, variable pulse. It gets kind of wild. Okay, so it's a language, right? And so home automation's the same. There are 3 or 4 major protocols that are languages, and these various devices are going to use one of those languages. Now, some of them can use multiple languages, and those are usually a little bit more expensive, but that's the way to go, because if you change your mind, you don't have to throw the equipment out. So Insteon is kind of an old one. That's the one that because I've been doing this for decades, that I have. Then there's Zigbee, there's Z-Wave. If I were going to start today, I would probably go with Z-Wave, because it is the most stable and it is the most reliable. Insteon tends to, their product quality has kind of gone downhill lately, meaning, you go buy a light switch and then if the thing starts to die, I get 2 years out of them, and then the equipment dies. Well, my whole house is, got these switches and sprinklers and controllers and motion sensors everywhere. I don't want to have to be replacing that stuff all the time.
Well, I got a question for you. And I know it's all, cellular activity is all related to all this as well, because it plays a big part in it as well. But is the 5G movement really How much is that going to enhance any of the home automation? Is that going to be any impact there at all, do you think, or no? No,
I don't think so, because home automation requires so little bandwidth to do its job.
Yeah, and it's basically it's
unless
basically
you're
using your IP, right? Your internet provider.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to use it's a device is in your home and you enable it, it'll use your home internet. But then when I'm away from home, I'm using that LTE
Through
or
an
5G
app.
or whatever. Now, if you've got cameras, if you've got cameras, you want to drop in on those, then absolutely that 5G speed boost will make a difference.
Yeah.
But I think and so the Hue lights, for example, to go back to those, they have a language or a protocol that they use. Now, these other three, they have sort of a side compatibility, again, like OBD, where it will work with the Hue lights, right? But for example, and then you get into things like, I'll give you a couple examples of how you integrate lighting with the rest of your home devices. I have in our TV room, I have it's called it's called an action group, but people call them scenes. If you want to think about it that way. And I'll literally push a button on my smartphone and it's called Showtime. And it will, just like in a movie theater, it will dim the lights, overhead track lights down to 15%, and it'll turn on some kind of side ambient lights. Maybe if I've got a couple of Hue lights, it'll set the color. It'll switch my home theater receiver to movie mode.
Does it do
turn
that
the
based
TV
on your preferences? Do you give it a set of a set of parameters how you want the room to feel?
Yep.
So it's not now, but I'm sure that there's some sort of default setting that would allow it to do it. Is there any sensors that would sense the room itself to?
You can do that. So here's an example that uses sensors. So we've all seen or heard of those, those floodlights with the motion sensors that you put on the outside of your house. And, it's got that little motion sensor in the middle and then two lights that stick outside. Well, they make those for home automation, and I've actually got some. They've been around a long time. And what I have mindset to do is I have a rule that says if it's after dark, because I don't want it doing it during the daytime. And it goes up every day and looks at the sunrise sunset schedule, and then that's how it knows if it's after dark, right? If it's after dark and motion is detected on one of those floodlights, I have it'll turn on it'll brighten the front door lights for 5 minutes. It will turn on some walkway lights. And so I have it set to just brighten the yard when it detects motion, because if somebody's pulling in the driveway or it's me, I've got a nice little lighted path now, but I don't have to leave the big 100-watt floodlights on for 8 hours. And then you get into geofencing. Okay, so geofencing, it integrates usually a mobile device like your phone. And let's say that I wanted to have music playing on maybe like a Sonos system, which they've gotten into home automation, or your Amazon Echo, your Alexa, whatever. And geofencing is literally a fence, like if you think about Google Maps, where I draw around my house, and I draw how and I draw how big I want that perimeter to be. And then when I come in that fenced area, into that perimeter, I tell it to then execute. So if this, then that. If I enter this area,
now do you have to have sensors on the perimeter to do that, or is it just it understand? Gotcha.
Location of your phone.
Understood. So it's and I bring that up because when I think of geofencing, which that's a term that's the first I've heard that term, by the way, I think of how you have your pets and you train your pets, the invisible fence. That's what when you said that at first, that's what I was thinking. So,
okay, so now you're going to pull me into that rabbit hole. So we have a golden retriever, and he has a tracker on him, and it has a geofence, and we get alerts on our phone if he takes a field trip and sneaks out. We'll know, we can find him. But you can do things, and people do crazy stuff with these geofences, like it'll have a welcome home theme song that it plays when you pull in, your driveway. You can have the garage door go up. You can have certain lights come on inside the house. You can have your thermostat go to a certain temperature. And there's all kinds of stuff you can do with these. And that's why I say, have an idea of sort of where you want to start with it. Where you want, do you want... The thermostats are a pretty handy from an energy saving thing. I've had the Nest brand, which I really like. It's very stable, and Google owns them now. Had those for 4 or 5 years plus, and and they're great. They paid for themselves in the first year easily. But, let me ask you a question, Jay.
Mm-hmm.
Without looking right now, is your garage door open or closed?
It should be closed. Yeah.
It should be. So they make a garage door device, and it will literally tell you if the door's up or down. And I've become a fan of that, not just from the that anxiety we've all had when we pull away going.
Well, I'll tell you the story behind that. My wife and I, we both, I think I may have told you this, that we get out of the garage and we have a duty to each other that where it is, we will say garage door is down, and then the other will repeat it. That way we know 5 miles down the road, we don't shut the garage door. So this is great because then that gives you that comfort level of knowing that it is closed. And if you needed to close it, you just hit the button, right? And it.
Yep. Well, you can look and see the status, and that'll soothe that anxiety. But here's another use of it, and we've had people, we'll go out of town and we'll give people keys to our house, and that's. And then they move away, and then I run out of keys, and I got to go have more copies made. And at some point, I'm like, man, I've got like 100 copies of my house key out there in the wild somewhere. With a home automate, like a garage door type thing, which I've got one. I'm actually going to do a review of and put it up on our website. Stay tuned for that. But you can let people in the house without giving them a key. Like, they can call me. I could be,
you got a family
away from
member
home.
or friend
I could be
coming
halfway
into town
across the
that you're not
country.
gonna be,
Here, hang on. Let me open the door for you. Push a button on my phone.
That's awesome.
Door goes up. When they leave, call me, and I go, okay, push a button, door goes down. That way they don't have to do the old try to push the button, run out the door, step over the sensor in the process, accidentally trip the light beam sensor, the door goes back up, they have to go back. It's Three Stooges for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
You can avoid all that. You can geofence also, if you like doing that, where the door just goes up when you pull in the driveway. I don't use the geofencing feature much because I run and bike, and I'm an outdoorsman a lot, and sometimes if I'm in my neighborhood running, I don't want the door to go up every time I run past my house.
It's very sensitive to the device is sensitive in your proximity, so it makes sense.
Yeah. Now, something else that is kind of an anecdotal side note is, for Christmas, we bought my son a smartwatch that has a cellular card in it. It's not an Apple. We just bought it like a $50 on Amazon kind of kids watch, but it has geofencing in it because it's got a little. I think we pay $5 a month for the cell phone service, and if we are not in a creepy way, but if he's ever like supposed to be at school and he's not, or if he's supposed to be home and he leaves that area, we can have alerts go off.
That's great. There's a lot of positive. There's a lot of upside.
Geofencing is Now you do have to kind of lock that stuff down. Don't use ABC123 as your password.
Yeah,
and
so
don't
that's
be
something that needs to be people need to be mindful of, is that these systems are secured. However, it does not make them immune to getting hacked.
No. I mean, if you're gonna, anything that's got technology in it has the potential to be hacked, and you need to, exercise a little common sense on that. Use a good password. Don't use your, date of birth or your home address
your
or whatever,
and or anything,
Yeah, I mean, make it complex. Complex means, usually not a dictionary
make 'em
word.
work
Throw a
hard
number,
for it. Yes.
a character.
That's how you do it. And change it often. Which, by the way, what is your recommendation on how often you should change your passwords?
60 to 90 days. And right now the whole audience just went because they all hate changing passwords. I know that, but if it's something important, right? So if it's your Netflix account and somebody hacks it, all right, you just reset the password and move on, right? But if it's your bank account or you need to be on a rotating schedule of don't go back to use don't just two, right? Have more than two, and there's some great apps out there that'll pick passwords
Yeah,
for you
and manage
save
them for you.
One
Yeah.
password, the number one password. They tend to cater more to the Apple side. Then LastPass is another one, which I think Google bought not too long ago. And those they're vaults, so they will store and generate random character strings of passwords, and you basically just have to know one password to get into that vault.
I should probably do a better job of that myself and have that manage mine for me, because since I have so many, so.
Yep. So home automation. So I guess sort of pick a starting point, give some thought to what you would like to accomplish, whether it's irrigation or lighting or music or a combination of the things. And that's where it gets really fun, is when you start to combine things like, so I have a formula set up that if certain weather events happen, certain lights will come on in the house and change colors. So for example, if it starts snowing, because I'm not always looking outside, or whatever, it'll trigger. Or if it's going to be a sunny day tomorrow, you can have the night before just kind of cool, fun
I'm
little
looking
weather
forward
things.
to not just the light telling me that. How about just a nice polite voice saying, Keith, it's raining outside.
Yeah, well, that's you can program.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing, man.
All of that.
I like that.
Yeah. It just depends on how deep you want to get into all that.
Now,
there are people that have geofencing set up to where they never touch a key to get into their house. Your phone you're in proximity and unlocks.
I can tell you that generations before me, and maybe even some folks in our generation may not be open to that. They just have that mindset that it's not safe, which in all actuality it really is if you do the things that you should be doing, which, like we said, with passwords and setting those parameters.
Yeah. I think the bottom line is give it some thought. If you have your door locks configured to work with your phone's location and you forget your phone at home, you don't,
There's three things when you walk out of your house that you should ask yourself: phone, wallet, keys.
Where'd you learn that?
It's on Netflix right now. It's pretty awesome. I love Adam Sandler,
yeah.
and if you are a fan of his, then you will not be disappointed. And yes,
Netflix special.
He does a piece on his buddy, man, that we lost many years ago. So really, really heartfelt. So anyway, I'm not going to give anything away.
No spoilers. Okay, thank you. So is there anything you want to know?
Yeah,
about
I do.
This whole home automation
because,
thing.
My in-laws actually just asked me recently, about what Xfinity is doing, right? As an IP provider, or an internet provider. They offer the home security systems and dimming your lights. And, my question to you is, how far have they gotten with this technology that would allow you a package like what you're currently using?
So you brought up several really good questions. So home security, which is different than home automation, but we are now starting to see the marriage of the two and sort of getting them to work together. And you can, do certain things, like if it's the middle of the night and the door comes open, I can have lights go on and things, more so than what your traditional kind of ADT system used to be able to do. So Comcast Xfinity has always been sort of a Me Too kind of, voice over IP caught on, and then they offered their, product after, everybody else was basically using their network to do it anyway. And I sort of feel like that's true in this case as well. So if you look at what they have to offer, and it looks good to you, and you don't think you'll ever need any more than that, then by all means it's a good option. But like irrigation control, for example, is not something they're going to be able to integrate with. So if you are looking at them and then think you might want to dive into something like that later, they're not a good choice. I am personally not a fan of giving someone else control over access to my home and things in it. I would rather set up my own. A lot of people use... So if you're going to do anything more than light bulbs, you're going to have to run this off of a server in your house. Now, before you freak out, let me say a lot of people just go buy a Mac Mini and put it in a closet somewhere and plug in, a little USB dongle. And you don't even have to have a monitor on it, once you get it set up. And then that thing talks to all the devices in your house.
That's plenty for that need.
But I am in control now of that box, which resides in my house. If you go down the road of Xfinity, pardon the pun, you're going to be looking at that server being somewhere outside your home, and some Comcast support guy has control over it. I'm not a fan of that. So there's your two kind of scenarios. Now, there are products out there that integrate with home security, like Simply Safe, like Canary, Nest has security cams now, and they will on some level integrate with other things. Nest has a works with Nest kind of, where the cameras work with the thermostats work with. And you might think, well, why does that matter? Well, let me give you an example. So we have a Nest smoke and carbon monoxide alarm, and if it gets triggered, it shuts off the thermostats.
Which makes sense.
Shuts off the HVAC units. Yeah. Well, why? Because circulating air, if you have a fire, is the absolute last thing you want going on, because
it will
make it. It will increase the rate of combustion, right? So then you get into, those thermostats have some motion sensors in them to know if you're home, to go into away mode. So, as you think about security cameras and that sort of stuff, it does make sense that it all works together. So again, just figure out kind of what you want to start with, and then you buy products that have the compatibility, and there are plenty of them. And that is true for the security side as well.
Man. Wow, I'm learning a lot.
The two biggest contributions to home automation over the past in recent years, whether it's 5 or 10 years or whatever, I would say are the thermostats. I mean, we'll give a nod to the lighting thing, although that's been around for a while. It's the introductory crack, if you will, that gets people hooked on home automation. But the biggest contributions would be the thermostats, I think. And now more recently, the doorbell camera security thing that everybody's got going on. Ring makes one, Nest makes one, and it's insanely cool, man. Like, I can't tell you how many times a delivery guy has rang my doorbell, and I've had a video conference with him, and they're used to it now.
I was having lunch with you one day,
out.
And you said, delivery guy. Like, that's awesome, man.
Yeah. And I just went, hey, can you leave it at the neighbor next door? To your right. And the guy's looking at me like, over here, to your right.
Go that way.
Right hand.
That's awesome.
Go that way. yeah. So, and a lot of them you can put those same motion alerts on, or sales guys going door to door, and you can just go. Hey,
God, are there still sales guys that go door to door?
Oh yeah, I have fun.
Kirby vacuums, Britannica encyclopedias.
I don't think they're selling.
Man, door to door sales. That's a whole podcast right there.
It's a bunch of Comcast guys.
Yeah. Well, they're not coming. I can't get them to come to my house to fix my problems, let alone come and ask me if I want more services. So I don't know what how active your Comcast and Xfinity guys are, but anyway, occasionally I get you'll get someone come through and say, hey, we're offering a package.
I'm not going to give them a ton of love for sure. So, but I would say and those doorbell camera things are great. They're really great. There's 3 or 4 good brands out there. Again, just pick a starting point and then pick one that works with your other stuff. But if you're going to look at one of those, think about having the capability of maybe getting a compatible door lock.
Right.
Because it's nice to be able to have a conversation and, your sister-in-law comes over and she goes, "Hey, I'm at the front door." Well, there ain't no way I'm giving my sister-in-law key to her. No, I'm kidding. But you can unlock the door for
That's
them.
awesome. Well, here's a question for you. For the average person that wants to know, you got to get a compatible door lock, like you said. Are your major box construction stores like Lowe's and Home Depot, are they selling those? Is that, or you have to buy those online?
Yeah, so they are selling them, and they're trying to find their way. So, several years ago, Lowe's was hot and heavy with all the Philips Hue stuff. And then some executive made a decision and went, man, we're going to sell our own brand now. We're going to pull all their stuff off the shelves. And that was recently. And I literally went in there looking one day for a Philips Hue bulb. And the guy was like, yeah, we don't carry them anymore. Home Depot has gone the other route. They're gradually starting to carry just anything and everything, from thermostats to cameras to lights.
Well, good for them.
So you can get a lot of it, maybe not everything. You're probably I have seen irrigation systems, definitely seen the garage door kits. A lot of those kits will integrate with your existing garage door. You don't have to go buy a whole new opener.
Okay, that's good to know. Yeah,
it just depends.
Yeah.
You just got to, it depends on what kind of mood you're in, what you're looking for.
Right.
If you don't want to replace your garage door opener and you like it, then there's options that you don't have to.
So, and I don't want to put you on the spot here, but just out of curiosity, and for our listeners as well, do you have any idea what the percentage of homes are actually in the U.S. now that are using these types of automation? Has it been a quick trend, or has it been a slow trend?
Well, if you just look at the past couple years, it's been a quick trend, and I'm going to tell you. So it's because of the lights.
Okay.
If we're going to count lights as part of home automation, which they are, then I would say we're getting close to half.
Wow, that's amazing.
That have something, whether it's a light bulb.
Is that like over the course of the last 10 years, the last decade?
2 to 3 years.
Wow, it's just amazing. Just amazing.
Now, people don't think of that as I've got a home automation system, but if you've got a device in your home, like a Hue light bulb, or GE makes one which actually uses the Hue protocol, so they can actually sometimes work together, but not. It's glitchy. But there are 3 or 4 others. You've got home automation. If you've got an Amazon Echo, you've got the capability for home automation. If you've got Google Home, Apple HomePod, whatever, those can all Apple has something called a Home Kit, which is designed to work with their HomePod, which lets you integrate with all these other home I mean, dude, I've got my Amazon thingy Echo. I can tell it to turn my TV on, and it'll turn my TV on.
It's amazing. Just amazing. Well, for all of you folks out there that might be a generation or 2 older than we are here, I would say that your clapper that you have, it qualifies as a early version of home automation.
Yeah,
it really is. I mean, you think about it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, and how old is the clapper? Gosh, that has to go back 30 years, 20, 30 years. Easy.
Yeah, I want to say early 80s.
Yeah. There's some advantages to this, man. And then you think about it, those things were developed for people who had, limited mobility. They're already in bed and they just want to turn their light off while they're already in bed. It's difficult for them to get in and out, and I get it. The main thing that I get from home automation is there is a safety factor there, because, if you have the right home automation going on and it's integrated into the emergency systems around you, if you're getting in trouble, your fire department, your EMTs, whatever, it's going to save lives. And I mean, we've even gotten to the point now to where you can purchase an in-home defibrillator. You can, that's becoming more and more common.
So, you can get things like electric sockets and light switches that are hardwired into, if you're handy with electrical, they make home automation versions of those where you can turn plugs on and off. So, as an example, what you're talking about, we talked about the the smoke alarms. I was searing a steak in my kitchen over the weekend. We had it's been really cold and rainy, and a lot of times I'll go outside and do that on the grill, but just weather wasn't conducive for that. And I smoked up the house pretty good, and I got the old, smoke alarm in the hallway kind of going on close right next to the kitchen. I have a routine set up that when the smoke alarm goes off, it turns all the lights on in the house for safety. Because if the house is on fire, I want to be able to see and get out.
And anyone else in the house that may not be as close to the origin as you are.
So the smoke alarm goes off. I get text alerts start going off on my phone that there's a smoke alarm going off at my house. I know this because I'm standing right there telling it to shut up. My wife's in the hallway with with the dish towel trying to, and the lights all come on. And you can have it, like it sends us text messages. I don't recommend having the thing auto dial 911 because of the false alarm.
Right, but to be able to have access to it, say you've fallen, and you can just
you can have it. Turn all the lights on. You can have it unlock the doors if you want so people can get to you. I mean, they're really, the sky's the limit. If you can think of what you want to happen, there's probably a way it can be done.
Pretty amazing. Just amazing. Hey, you know what? Here we are today talking about this. I cannot imagine what this technology will bring us in 10 years. I mean, just a combination of
I think it'll bring me tea,
right,
Earl Grey.
Exactly. I mean, we're totally getting into the Jetson lifestyle, the zone.
Yeah.
I mean, to where we talked about this a few podcasts back about home automation, where it will literally cook you a meal.
Oh, they've got vacuum cleaners now from think about the Jetsons. I think about that, and they've been around forever. We talked about iRobot. In the last podcast or the podcast before that, coming up with the lawnmower thing in your yard. They've been doing the in-house robotic vacuums for a decade.
Roomba.
Roomba.
I was going to say Zumba. Roomba.
Yeah. There's a couple of other brands now, but you can integrate those with other things too. Like you can tell it when I leave my house to do your business or whatever. So I mean, there's
so much, so much. It's just incredible, I mean, I remember several years ago, I saw my first refrigerator that had all of this automation on it and a video screen.
Yep.
And I thought to myself, why would I need this?
Family calendars,
for a family, I understand it.
Need is a relative term.
Yeah, exactly. I get that. But for families, I can see how it would be very beneficial. And we talked about this, before we started podcasting, which was, you got a kid coming home from school, and it's a routine that they have a list of things that they need to get done throughout the day. They go up to the fridge, tap the little memo button or whatever it is, and boom, you work down your list. And, it's
family calendars, it's a real helpful,
Sure.
If you're into like we are, there's sports events calendars and school calendars and work calendars.
Yeah, you could store photos calendars in it too, right? So that it changes the scene or whatever and all that. It's just amazing.
Yeah, some of them have cameras in the fridge, and it'll show you on that screen on the door
without
what's in the fridge. Yeah, so you can tell before you pull the door
open.
Which is an
energy saver for people. There's a reason for it. Some people might think that's crazy, but
speaking of kids who like to stand there with the door open for 20 minutes.
Exactly. I'm guilty of it. I've done it. So.
So we need to tell the folks listening or watching a couple things. I guess in wrap up, do we want to tell them about the headwear of choice on Jay? This podcast
near and dear to my heart, Harley Davidson. Yeah.
Now, how often do you have to repair that hat?
That's a good one. Well, it's a mid 2000s, so it's a little bit better than the older one that I had, so it's all good. Yeah, it's actually this one's actually
nice
from
hat.
Reno. So I've got.
You went to visit the store at Reno, and
there are some things that I like to collect, and Harley hats and shirts are one of them. So if I can, I think the most probably the most unique Harley Davidson T-shirt that I have actually came from the Soviet Union. Was given to me by a friend that traveled there on business, and knew that I collected them and brought me one back. Pretty cool. So
in Russia, Harley fixes you.
Yes. Yeah, right on. So
Wow.
take us out, man. We
if you are listening to this podcast, we have a video. Actually, we have a whole video channel with more than just the podcast. We would love it if you would kindly subscribe to that to help us reach our subscriber goal to be able to continue doing this. Doesn't cost you a dime to do that. We've got a YouTube channel. The easiest way for you to get information about where we are on the internet is to go to our website, which, Jay, you ready for this?
www.partscounterguru.com.
We've got a page. We've got a link on our website at the top, near the top of the page. It says podcast.
That
links.
is the easiest. Yeah, that is the easiest way to get to whatever source of this podcast you want, whether it be audio or video, like on YouTube.
Yep. If you've got an Apple device, we've got the links to like the iTunes or Apple Podcast. If you've got an Android device, we've got all Stitcher, TuneIn. We've got Google Podcasts. It's all right there on the podcast links page link on our website. We have a request of each of you listening to tell a friend. That is the absolute best thing you can do for us to help us out right now. It doesn't cost you anything. Just tell somebody about the podcast. Tell them about the YouTube channel. The second best thing you can do is to subscribe. If you've already subscribed and you know somebody that doesn't keep a password on their computer, go to their computer and subscribe.
Exactly. Yes.
From there.
And then suggest a password app that might help them out. So after you subscribe
to our YouTube.
Yeah. No, but subscriptions are what we need. We need that. That's going to help keep us active in this, help us grow this thing. It'll help us expand on our content. And obviously, ultimately, all of you listeners out there are the ones that will benefit from this the most. So.
Yep. And thank you, by the way. So kind of after all of that, if you want to follow us, we've got social media. We've got Facebook. It's
Parts Counter
Gurus with an S. So facebook.com
Instagram is the Parts Counter
Gurus.
Gurus. That's right.
At the Parts Counter Gurus. And then we have a Patreon supporter page, which is the Parts Counter Gurus as well.
It's Parts Counter Gurus.
I'll put the link up on screen.
Patreon, yes, /Patreon, I think.
It's Parts Counter Gurus. Yeah. Okay. Sorry for mess. See, yet another podcast that I did not successfully make it through without botching something.
We're all good there. And then we also have an area there where you can ask us a question, and we really encourage that because, we love to have topics of discussion. There may be something that we haven't hit on, even within this podcast that we didn't talk about today that you may have a question for, and I'm sure we can answer that. We may not have the answer right away, but we'll certainly get that for you. So.
Yeah, you know what? If there's something you want us to discuss, drop us a note. There's, like Jay said, the Ask Us a Question page on our website, which is what again, Jay?
www.partscounterguru.com.
He hates it when I do this.
Actually,
but it's
I
so
like
entertaining.
it, man.
Okay. Ask us a question. But if there's something you don't like, if you want to see
Tell
change,
us.
I mean, sure. We like feedback. Tell us. What
I
am I
think
forgetting?
you're really forgetting anything, man. I think we've covered it today. Hats. If you want to see me wear your hat, or any hat for that matter, as long as it is within the G rating, no body parts or anything like that hanging off the hat, send it in to us. Just reach out to us and ask us a question page. Reach out to us,
and I think we're gonna do some members only stuff eventually on the Patreon side, where we maybe do a private couple videos for the fans, or maybe a live stream or something like that. But for now, the operators are standing by for everyone. If you've got head paraphernalia, you can send it in, or you can drop us a note, and we'll tell you how to get it.
And I will be more than happy to wear the hat. I love hats, so it's always a good topic of discussion. So you will be mentioned, and we'll talk about it. Just give me the story behind the hat, and we'll let you know what's going on. It doesn't matter what the hat is. It can be a beer hat. It can be a restaurant hat. It can be an auto shop hat. It doesn't matter. Just we want you to enjoy what you're seeing. So
I can't wait to see
hats
what
come in.
surfaces,
Right.
Mickey
I'd
Mouse
wear 'em.
ears and all that.
I'd wear them.
All right, so if you want a shout out, now you know how to get a shout out on the podcast. Until next time, that is Jay over there. I am Keith. Remember to keep air in the spare and your mother-in-law in the trunk.
This here's Rubber Duck. Come on.
Go ahead.
We ought to have a little podcast on CB jargon. Whatever happened to good old CBs, man? CB radios were great.